Hello, welcome to the Vandal Factory podcast with me, Henry Raby, also with co-host Natalie Quatermass. This is a podcast we talk about arts and activism and trying to push the boundaries of theatre and poetry and art for radical change. I'm stood outside Leeds Playhouse where I'm about to go and interview Flo, who is the artistic director of Zuko, about their show, Perfect Show for Rachel. I say their show, it's not really their show, it's Rachel's show. Rachel is a learning disabled adult and she has complete control over all the decisions that happen in the show. I saw it last night at the Playhouse and it was so much fun and zany and wonderful and sparky and strange and pushing all those boundaries, like literally pushing them right off the stage. So you should definitely check it out. Check out A Perfect Show for Rachel on tour. And if you like what you hear, you can also subscribe to the Vandal Factory podcast. We are a DIY podcast. That means we don't have any money. we don't have any sponsorship or promotions. So it really helps if you could help spread the word by subscribing or sharing. And if you like to hear conversations about theatre, I would recommend episode 31, where we spoke to Sarah Brigham, the artistic director of Derby Theatre. Right, I'm going to pop into the Playhouse and I'm going to chat to Flo. See you in a bit. Hello, so we're in the bowels of Leeds Playhouse. I've never been this deep before. I feel like I should leave some breadcrumbs. But we've got a meeting room and I heard Flo, who is the AD of Zuko.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing? How's Leeds treating you?
Love Leeds. It's been great so far. I feel like I need to get out and explore because I've been a little gremlin in sort of tech and dress rehearsal mode. But we opened the show last night and I am ready.
Great. And you're based down in Croydon?
We're based in Croydon, yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself first as an artist and your craft?
Yeah, sure. So I co-founded Zuko along with some schoolmates when I was young and dumb. I thought...
Passionate.
Yeah, I'm passionate. I'm still passionate, but and I'm still dumb, but I've learned a lot more about... I thought I was a bit of a cocky little shit. I thought, running a theatre company, that looks like something I can do. And then set up and got going before the slow dawn realisation that it's actually quite bloody hard. So that was like 14 years ago, in 2013-ish. And we started as a company of mates making work with like big devising, co-creation models, taking it to the fringe, trying stuff out. And now Zuko is an NPO, which is great. It means we get some money from the government to do our work. And we were kind of a big part of Croydon's Borough of Culture programme. And there's like staff and people and normal working hours and contracts and, you know, all of that crazy stuff that you don't contemplate when you are 20 years old and setting up a company. And more we've become... more and more interested in creating theatre that feels extra live, which is really a term that got coined in conversation with Jess Toms, who is the AD of Tourette's Hero, about how relaxed performances are anything but necessarily relaxed as an atmosphere. You might be relaxed within them. We started off just making kind of creative devised work for whatever we felt was important to us, and then we started to tour for a relaxed as standard model, and for about a year venues hated it. They were like, can't you just put it on the Wednesday matinee? And we were like, no. And it was the reason we did that was because Rachel, my sister, who we're going to talk about, would come to our shows, and we knew that she was going to heckle us the whole time because she's learning disabled. She doesn't give a fuck about all the uptight British theatre audience etiquette stuff. So we'd just say, okay, well, if Rachel's coming, we'll say it's a relaxed performance, because then the audience can chill out, they know we're okay, we can give a bit of context. And then those shows where we would say, like, by the way, you can be a person with a body and a brain in response to us, would feel this, like, electricity, this, like, extra liveness. So even if we were looking at an audience where we wouldn't necessarily guess that someone was there with access needs, we just started to tour this relaxed as standard model because it felt really crazy. Like in a fringe run, you'd do one Monday that was relaxed, and those fringe runs we'd be like, oh my God, people are laughing more. People are like not trying to disappear themselves in our audiences, whether they're disabled or not. And if they are disabled, they feel comfy, and that's great and welcomed. And we really just started with that as our access practice for a really long time, because it just felt so doable. We did not have to get wiser or richer in order to be able to say to people at the beginning of a show, from a cast member critically, woven into part of the show, by the way, you don't have to do the drag act of being in a British theatre audience. You can just be you, and we'll be us, and we'll keep going. And then later down the line, we started to make shows where the stories themselves called for us to be wiser and have more money. Around like the casting we wanted to do, we started to make a show called Sirens. The myth of the sirens is that any man who hears the sirens' voices will drown. And we came to this like dramaturgical issue where we were like, we really need them to be able to have a conversation with like a man for this like feminist issue to be confronted. Maybe we want to have a deaf character in this so that we can kind of look at that through a disabled lens. And that required us to do things like crash course learning BSL and learning how to work with interpreters. And I have to say, like, I was quite naive about what moving from my whole experience growing up with Rachel, who's learning disabled, and also care experience that I have working since I was like 14. I worked in care. I just thought, it would be a bit like that. There'll be like a natural skill set there. And actually, deaf culture comes with its whole own depth and richness that is, some of those those bones were useful, but most of them weren't. And I had to sort of really learn a new practice around making deaf and hearing work that was equitable in 2 languages and all of that stuff. And then since then, we've been exploring things like, what do I mean to say? What we try and do is when the story calls for it, we learn new shit about how to be artists. So when we wanted to make Sirens, the story compelled us to learn how to make deaf and hearing theatre. And then when we started to make Perfect Show for Rachel, the show that we're doing here at Leeds Playhouse, we had to go on a radical journey of reinventing what we thought theatre should look like, how process should work, what directing looks like all of those things got reinvented, but it was because we were really convinced that Rachel had something to say or like a story to tell. And for me, as an artist, that is where my most sustainable, inventive, exciting, radical art comes from. It's from a place of still caring deeply about the art and working out which aspects of those sort of disabled lenses are going to best tell that story. I'm Flo, and with me is my sister
Rachel.
And we're making a show called
Perfect Show for Rachel.
Perfect Show for Rachel. This is a day in the life of our director, Rachel, and this is our rehearsal room in Streatham. This is you sitting down at your desk, ready to push the pushing the buttons, yeah. That's me pointing you out on the telly because you like being on the telly in rehearsals, don't you?
Is Rachel on TV?
Always. What are you pointing at?
There.
Yeah.
Come on, Fur.
This is you choosing your next button. Who's that?
It's Lee.
It's Lee. And what's he got?
Bag.
He's got the bags. This is a song called Who's Got the Bag, which is one of Rachel's favourite buttons. And it's quite hard work for everyone. We have to do it lots of times in the show. But look, it really makes you laugh, doesn't it?
No.
Laugh, yeah. The show is a lot of Rachel just laughing at us. But look, oh no. Everyone has to.
Why Rachel I?
Because we've all fallen over. Look, it's Rachel on the telly again.
Rachel's on the
telly. And this is our actual mum, Wendy.
Come on, Wendy.
Come on, Wendy. And then at the end of the show, we always say,
well done, Rach.
Yeah, well done, Rach. Brilliant.
And here we are in Leeds. You've done, was it a couple of shows of Perfect Show for Rachel
just
here in Leeds? Just the one last night. So, yeah, I loved it. It was gorgeous and just fun and chaotic. Yeah. But also, we'll talk about it, but like a structured chaos, a planned chaos, but still mischievous at its core. Do you want to do the spiel and set up for listeners? It's quite... there's a bit of admin, isn't there? There's a bit of just explaining, like, here is the fun.
Yeah.
Do you want to paint a picture for the listeners?
So I grew up with Rachel, who's my older sister, and she is labelled as severely learning disabled. She lives in a care home. And like I say, she's an avid theatre goer, especially when she can shout at people in the cast. And I had this total belief that there was something in my relationship with Rachel that would be of note, that I would want to express artistically. But a lot of people were like, you should write a play about being a sibling carer. And I was like, I don't want to. I've done lots of poetry about that. And also, like, a lot of us work in the arts. We probably all need the attention. And I was pretty sure that someone else might have written that show. And I've actually seen someone who made that show, and it did really well. And it was, they told that lens of that story. But I had this like really unique alchemy around me in that Rachel, unlike not all learning disabled people would share this, but like loves being in the theatre. So I knew that her at least being in the building was a possibility. And she's really funny, and she's really enigmatic, and she's really sharp. And that matters in an artist. And then I had Lee Simpson, who's in the show. He's co-artistic director of Improbable, who make like My Neighbour Totoro and Einstein on the Beach and all these amazing, huge shows that are founded in improvisation. And I knew that if I was making something with Rachel, I didn't know that she would be the director. That came later. I had to give up my job. But I knew if I was working with Rachel, what I didn't want to do was what we did. Whenever she would come to see our shows before, we would allow in her comments or her jokes or whatever. But eventually, at some point, you go, okay, back to the script. Yeah. Because you have to. The show isn't built to just go off on a tangent for one audience member. And so basically the show is a tangent for one audience member who became the director. But I knew it would not be linear. And so I asked Lee for he's been my mentor since I was 19, which is very lucky, and has had like a profound and meaningful impact on my artistic life and also just on me as a person. And I said, like, do you think you could help with this one? And he was like, yeah, I think I've got something I could do around that. They've done lots of work about working with people whose brains or bodies are responding differently to the world than what we expect. That's a really broad church, but that is how broad it is. They've done work around coma. They've done work in his personal life, he's done work with nonverbal autistic family friends and things like that. And then in my parents, I had, they're just enough on the side of bohemian that they would let me do this. It's a big experimentation. And like now we're really confident in it, but I had no idea if I was going to maybe really fuck up my sister's well-being, even temporarily. I was like, I don't know what impact this will have. I don't know if she'll like having an audience. I have no idea. And my mum and dad, with a lot of meticulous like question asking and care baked in, which is like one of the reasons my mum is in the show, because as Rachel's carer, but also a performer sometimes, because it feels important to kind of show she's like an ethical tentpole under the show. You kind of go like, a sibling could get distracted and go like, oh, we're at the Barbican, well, we're on a big UK tour, we're flying internationally, and maybe get carried away. But I think a parent is less likely to like do that. And then I had a theatre company that was already developing this practice, and I thought like, I think I have to make something really weird and different, but it's not going to be about my experience directly. Obviously, secondarily, I imagine people pick up things about my experience through the show. Like, what if Rachel's got a story to tell? And I suspected that might be the case. And then I passed my driving test. I got like a £400 car with no power steering. And I took her on a drive. And I said, like, right, where do you want to go? And Rachel thinks sat-nav is really funny because it's just like a little robot man telling you where to go. And so she started saying, like, turn left and turn right and stuff. And I don't know, but I don't think Rachel knows her lefts and rights. And then when she realised I was really following her, she started to point instead. And she took me from the town that we were living in at the time to another town next door that we used to live in. And she took me on this, like, tour of all of our childhood, like, places. I've been there. And, like, Rachel has... her language is not the only way that she communicates, but when she's very geographically astute. She really knows where she is in time and space. If you take a detour, she's like, where are you going? And
in the show, she also, that I saw, repeated a lot, asking Rachel is...
Yeah, Rachel's in Leeds. Yeah, she likes to know where she is and tell people that she's been there before. And Yeah, she took us on this tour of like really important places from our childhood. And then she drove us out of the town and I was like, oh, I don't know where we're going now. And I slowly started to get this realisation that she was taking me to this old house I used to have. It's like a friend's parents' house that a house sat when they migrated. And I got to live there with my then boyfriend. This was like 3 years before this car journey. And Rachel really liked it because she could come over for sleepovers and watch movies and stuff. And then we broke up because I was 18. And breaking up is a thing you do when you're 18. And I was so like heartbroken and sad that I just moved out. And I didn't really think about the kind of story of that for Rachel. But I moved into London where there was not space for sleepovers and it wasn't as easy and I wasn't just down the road. And I think she was like, she sat me outside that house and she was like, I like it here. I like the lodge. And I was like, I know, I don't live there anymore. And she's like, I like it here. And we had this like quite profound moment where she's sort of deading me in the eyes, like I'm like welling up, and and I'm going, oh God, yeah, I really didn't take you with me on that journey, and you've obviously been holding that for like 3 years, 4 years. Don't quote me on the timelines. I've definitely messed up somewhere, but like it was years later, and she had about 10 minutes of telling me what to do, directing me. And she takes me to this story that she really needs to tell me. And I was like, fuck, you're a better storyteller than me, but I don't think we can do a show in a car. So, like, from there, we kind of built out. And it really was, like, inventing how to do that. Like, she sits at this big desk with 50 buttons on it. It looks like a space shuttle from The Simpsons, I always think. But that desk didn't exist until, like, the third R&D. Right. Working out how Rachel would direct us was like writing a language around like how does she make choices, how many menu choices can she recall, how do we make sure she can recall them, how can we make that broader for her when she gets frustrated. Like at first there was just a button that said music, but she was getting frustrated because she couldn't control which song. Okay, so we need 10 buttons for all of the different songs. Okay, how are we going to do that? And we built iPad apps, but they didn't quite work for Rachel's like fine motor skills, and then we came to this desk that's like enormous, and yeah, she live directs the show every night. It's camp, it's a bit punk, it's really silly and chaotic, like you said, but there's this kind of underlying thing of like, if Rachel didn't press a single button, we'd all be okay, because our practice, as well as like making a really funny fight sequence or learning our choreography for Dirty Dancing or Kylie Minogue's drag act, like, is also in fundamentally rewiring ourselves as artists, as performers, as people, to not wish Rachel was doing something different. So when Rachel last night, she looked tired, and you don't wish your collaborator to look tired, especially not your learning disabled sister who's directing her show. And there's a bit of me that goes, oh, I wish she wasn't tired. I want to, she could be really peppy and really chatty, but she is. I'm working from this premise that Rachel is perfect and I need to catch up with that. And that's how everyone in the company is working. And I'd love to say that's easy, but it's really, we've grown up in a really deeply ableist society that really values learning disabled people changing towards being more like the norm. So we praise the joke that makes sense, or learning how to tie your shoelaces. We praise things that bring someone towards us. We don't often praise people who have learned how to go the other way, how to step into someone like Rachel's world, because it's very scary. It requires change on the other side. We're really into the business of like doctoring and changing learning disabled people. We're not really into the business of wondering if it might be okay that they're exactly as they are.
When I've done arts projects in day services for learning disabled adults, I would say broadly everybody's happy, but it's very much we'll all do stuff as a gang. We're all gonna cook the food together, or we're all gonna do the crafts together, we're all gonna watch the film together, because that's the easiest thing to manage 12 learning disabled adults in one go.
Absolutely.
And also at its worst could be abusive, but midway between that is infantilizing and to treat adults as children. And so what I found was there was childlike glee in that it's very fun and colourful and silly, but everyone can enjoy the childlikeness of it, but it's still very much there's some adult, like, you know, we're gonna go to the Kylie gig on the screen.
Yeah.
We're gonna like sing and dance and fire people and fart and talk to the audience, and you know, it's anywhere but say it's punk, it's a bit panto, it's circusy. I will say that some of the improv suggestions last night were really boring. People
From the audience.
From the
You're
audience,
cross with the
yeah.
audience.
You guys nailed it, but someone was like, oh, so for the listener, like the one of the sections is let's do an improvisation, and you ask the audience where the location is. So at a bus stop, the library, the supermarket. I was like, boring.
You know what? Anything can happen in those places.
Sure.
In our dress rehearsal, we had, or maybe it was in the show, I can't remember, I get them scrambled, but we had the Audi middle aisle, but we just did a cowboy shootout in the Audi middle aisle.
Yeah.
So, I love that you were not in judgment of the art, but of the audience. Come on, guys.
You guys smashed it. You always made it really, really fun. But like, I, in my head, I was going to shout aquarium, and someone said swimming. I was like, fine.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the base level of my sillier idea, where you could have had sharks and octopuses.
The worst is when we get like a young person in the audience and they say something like Roblox, and every person on stage is like, what does that mean? We're not in this world. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about audiences, because there's now so much more interaction with Rachel, and that's one of the places where Rachel's adultness comes out, because she's genuinely on the prowl for a boy. Generally, her aim, like last night, she wouldn't let us talk to anyone who wasn't at least willing to be a boy for that moment. And we've had to work out, like, how do we build consent into audience interaction? Because Rachel's just going to ask, like, are you my friend? Are you doing this? Come on stage or whatever. So we go, if you're a boy and you don't mind talking to Rachel, put your hand up. And we've got these sort of framing devices so that can be held. But it's so interesting, because the first time that ever happened, we had no idea that Rachel would interact with the audience. In every test audience, she just sort of smiled and then watched the show. And now she just watches the audience for a lot of the time. She gets so much information from their responses. She'll often be like, if things feel like the audience has gone a bit quiet, she will go back to a button that they really liked earlier and kind of go like, I'll give you what you want then, which is interesting. But the first time she turned around to them, I just hadn't, you build all these principles around keeping Rachel safe on stage, keeping the cast safe, and then separately the promise you're making to the audience. We've kind of dropped the term relaxed performance out of the show spiel. Of course it is, and I think if you know what a relaxed performance is, you get the culture that is what it is. But we're like, it's not necessarily relaxing, because Rachel might suddenly require something of the audience now, which is sort of a different thing that you have to work out how to frame. But in Manchester, she said, I want the audience to be naughty. And we gave them 10 seconds to be naughty, and they absolutely went mental. Like, they were like throwing plastic cups and changing seats and stamping, and Rachel loved it. But like, that kind of, how do you broker this politic between I'm keeping this audience safe, but Rachel doesn't care about that. But then I also find people are more willing to bend to the whim of Rachel as a director than they normally might be in interaction in something else, where they go, nope, definitely not. Like, people want to be in Rachel's world now, which is really surprising, because the first time it happened, she was like, I want to chat, and I was like, oh no. And I looked at my friend in the audience and went, would someone say hello to Rachel? And the whole audience bellowed like, hello Rachel. And I was like, oh right, I need to stop worrying, they're actually okay.
There's like that unlearning of theatre, right? The structures, the rules, and I was also going to wonder, it's quite a big cast as well. You've got a big gang on stage, so I just wondered about that process, almost of casting as well, because the actors you're working with they have to sing, they have to dance, they have to improvise and get the vibe. So obviously you're not the director of the show, but what is that like as a process of building your team, and then, as you said, embedding in, and in terms of access, that there's BSL on stage, text is projected on stage, there's probably lots of other access things that I, as a fairly non-disabled person, sort of missed on and just enjoyed the surface level stuff. But yeah, what does that feel like to work with a gang to unpack that?
It's complex, because you have, like I said earlier, like, you have to let the story, Rachel's life, lead at least the really, like, the forefronted access. But that requires, like, my worst fear is that audiences who don't use some access measures go away and tell people, oh, the show's accessible for everyone. It is really, there's a lot of radical access in the show, like you say. Like, we've got a deaf and hearing signing team. There is some captioning when the show isn't improvised, which is less and less because a lot of it is improvised. And there's Rachel has a live scribe to type her words because we don't think audiences' ears always understand what Rachel is saying, and sometimes she's talking over really loud music anyway, so that they look like poetry. And then normally about one run a week is audio described by an improv specialist audio describer. And, you know, there's people who go like, this should be integrated. And I really understand, like, it's like this show makes a big promise around disability politic. And for various reasons, we don't think that that's quite possible for us to stretch into that. And it's partly a resource thing and partly an access clash thing of like what Rachel understands. But like shows like this require like meticulous, ethical, political care. And then like Rachel doesn't use British Sign Language, knows a bit of Makaton from growing up in learning disabled environments, but she doesn't use it as a communication tool. So like, how do we broker the relationship between Stephen, our deaf actor, and Rachel? And then there's like really potentially spiky and nuanced conversations. I mean, they were a breeze with Stephen, but like around like Stephen choosing that he would use his voice in this show, where in another show he might just sign with his voice off, and that for him was important to be able to create connection with Rachel, who wouldn't understand signed languages. And so like there's a million dynamics going on. There's like lots of little things that the company does to support like where to look when chaos is happening. And also there's loads of hidden access needs in that company. But bringing them together was really about, I mean, I think I've spent my life judging people through the lens of, would my sister think you're a dickhead? If she would, I don't want to be your mate. And falling in love with people because they can hang out with my sister. So I have a pretty good read on that, and finding people based on spirit, and then they also had to have these amazing skills. Like, we've got the co-founder of Showstopper as our musical director. Like, we've not fucked about on bringing in people who can really meet this, but they come not just because politically they're aligned with the show, but because artistically it's a really new set of muscles to be led by someone who maybe doesn't even understand your practice, and to go, you're perfect and my music needs to... You know, Rachel started singing in the show more. That never used to happen. Like in Oxford, where we were 2 weeks ago, she sang the whole of Hallelujah, which was beautiful. But Chris had to really change how he played the show, almost like, oh, I'm underscoring a duet now, not a solo. And it was really moving and profound, because Rachel doesn't sing out like that very often in front of people. So yeah, that bringing together of people was like, who does Rachel know already and have... But because I was so worried about being the only gatekeeper of Rachel. Like, oh no, she doesn't like that, or she does like that. So my mum being there creates another aspect of that, because otherwise it's all coming through me, really. It's the Flo Omani take on who Rachel is. And of course there's a lot of that, but you have to have other people go, I've actually got this joke with Rachel now. I've in the pub we were talking about this thing. And so other people in her life, including people who aren't in the show, feed in and tell us that, oh, she loves this thing in her care home. We work with them really closely. Or my dad will say, like, oh, we do songs in the garage and this is the song she really loves at the moment. Or my mum will correct, like on her director's menu, which is different to the buttons. My mum will say, she doesn't know what that word means. We need to change it so she'd understand it. And you go like, oh, I thought she knew that. Well, okay, yeah, cool. So it's like creating a committee of people, making enough space and time around them. It's been 4 years. Most people have worked on the show for the whole time. It's been a really kept together company, which is amazing, because it's not a convenient show. It tours and then it doesn't, and then it tours and it doesn't, but people keep on making space and time for it, which is incredible. But you have to create enough space for them to get to know Rachel, so that other parts of Rachel can be reflected back into the show. Which I love. It's very moving to me. Like, I think families around learning disabled people and learning disabled people themselves tend to experience their nuclear family, and then the next grade of like relationship is probably with professional carers. And don't get me wrong, those people are incredible and they are like an extended family for Rachel, but that is different than having loads of friendships. And me and my mum constantly reflect on like, oh my God, we can like both go to the loo at the same time, and we just know when we come back Rachel's going to be laughing, maybe someone will be wiping her chin or helping her with her food. Like, there's so many more people who are not just willing but keen to hang out with Rachel because they've seen her in this way and they've learned her magic, which is weird because the second we step out of the theatre, Rachel goes back to being perceived as this kind of one-dimensional version of learning disability. People don't look at her, people don't talk to her. That's jarring, actually. That's a really weird part of this, is like, and then someone will come up to us and say, I saw the show last night, how are you? And they know how to talk to Rachel, but 100 other people don't. And that's like, oh, good, you're like, you don't know what you're missing out on. And if you did, you would work harder because you would know it was on you, not her, like, to get there.
Thanks, Flo. I've just asked a couple more last questions to wrap up. One is sort of looking to the future. I guess I'm curious, you've gone through such a process, just you as a theatre maker now, when you do step back into the directing chair, when you are in a room that isn't necessarily the perfect show for Rachel, but what's the next perfect show that you think, this is where my practice I want to explore further?
That is such a good question, and it's big for me. A part of me can't go back to making work in the ways I did before this. This was a really massive step change in my practice, in our practice as a company. And we are now developing a show where... So what happens when Rachel comes on stage is there's this almost perfect thing that you can't control. There is some loss of control that you hand over to something or someone, in this case, and say, I am in service to this thing happening. And preferably for me now, that thing might change and shift live in the show. So I'm curious about models of theatre that accept change in the moment, even if it's a scripted show, or I think there's still pockets of freedom to find. I'm also especially interested in continuing to develop this sort of semi-improvisational, semi-structured mode of making theatre. I imagine we'll continue to do Perfect Show for Rachel for as long as funders and venues will want it, and there's plans for hopefully more international touring and all of that. I hope, touch wood. And Rachel's show can continue to develop and change. We're adding a button this afternoon, which is very exciting. But in my practice, I'm curious about finding this like crackle of the extra live, where an audience can see some territory being lost by the director or the artistic director in order to serve something that we decide is worthwhile. So at the moment, we're researching a story about it's like a really long endurance competition, and we're looking at meticulously detailed reports of like the weather and sunrise and sunset and local and global headlines for this like period of time set in the 80s, and that's one of the control features. That okay, we can't control the story, but we want the audience to dream with us every night that we make the show, and for them to choose of this kind of long endurance piece, which day do I want to see, and what do I want to understand about the characters, and so the audience then gets a bit of what Rachel has in Perfect Show for Rachel. The audience kind of becomes a co-creator of the work, still with structure and scripting, and yeah, so that's one place. I'm starting to make some opera. I'm doing a micro opera for the Royal Opera House. Never thought I would be in anywhere near an opera house. I'm still not sure if I will be, but like actually the space that opera creates in its music means that loads of live crackly stuff might be able to happen. I don't know. I've made one 5-minute opera so far, so that's interesting. And then, yeah, I think this kind of the role of an onstage director or conductor or conduit of some sort between audience, the story, and the artists that are trying to tell it is something that I just want to keep on discovering. And then the other thing we're doing is we now do a version of the practice of Perfect Show for Rachel, which we call Perfect Worlds, which we take into various arts or community settings where we almost share the practice of like what you need to do, what you and I need to do, so that when the next learning disabled person we interact with walks into our life, we are more able to change and rewire some stuff and notice it. It's really just an art of noticing when your judgment comes up, and be more present. And it's improv without being too wanky about it. It is being able to accept what is and to build from there. So saying yes and saying and being able to do that with a radical politic of like collaboration and following rather than leading. And that's huge and might be a whole life's work for me, I think. So we're still doing that program in various places, and I learned so much as an artist doing that. It's slow and it's quite unglamorous at times, and it can be, like you spoke about boredom earlier, but actually being able to tolerate boredom as an artist whose job is to entertain people becomes a whole part of the politics. Rachel loves things like repetition, or there might be huge space, or if someone communicates completely on a really micro level with just eye lines or whatever, I have to tune out all my other receptors and sensory seeking wants and needs in order to be able to just be with someone's eye line. Or in one case, we had a guy who directed us with his tongue, and we had to find the game in that and not be looking for verbal or gestural communication from someone for whom that wasn't part of their world. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Flo. I'm going to ask you the question we ask everyone to end an interview, which is, do you have a song you'd like us to play on the Vandal Factory podcast?
Okay, I don't know if this will dick you over or not, but I'm about to go and see the Streets concert, Grand Don't Come For Free. And Rachel and I both love the Streets, probably for slightly different reasons. For Rachel, it's just naughty boys talking about girls. For me, I just maybe I like it because it's naughty boys talking about girls. Wait,
I like it because it's naughty boys.
Right. I would like you to play Fit But You Know It by the Streets. We play it in the pre-show. Rachel absolutely loves it. It's a banger. I think you could probably play this song at my funeral.
Flo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, girl. I know it's a bit embarrassing, but I just noticed some tan lines on your shirt.
See, I reckon you're about an 8 or a 9. Maybe even 9.5 in 4 beers' time. That blue top, sharp top you've got on is nice. Bit too much fake tan, no, but yeah, you score high. But there's just one little thing that's really annoying me about you, you see. Yeah, like I said, you are really fit, but my gosh, don't you just know it?
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know it?
So when I looked at you standing there with your hoard, I was waiting in the queue looking at the board, wondering whether to have a burger or chips, or what the shrapnel in my back pocket could afford. When I noticed at the corner of my eye, looking toward my direction, your eyes locked on my course. I couldn't concentrate on what I wanted to order, which lost me my place in the queue I waited for. Yeah.
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know it?
Whoa!
Leave it out.
Are you smoking crack or
Mike,
something?
just leave it, just leave
We
it.
cannot have that behaviour in this establishment.
It's not worth it, Mike. Just leave
Don't
it.
touch me.
It's not worth
Don't
it.
touch me.
Leave it out.
Look, I'm alright. Don't touch me. For a while there, I was thinking, yeah, but what if? Picturing myself pulling with bare white hot wit, snaring you as you were standing there opposite. Whether or not you knew it, I swear you didn't tick. And when that bloke in the white behind us like queuing was clocking onto you too, yeah, I had to admit that yeah, you are fit and yeah, I do want it, but I stopped sharking a minute to get chips and drinks.
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know
Now,
it?
I bashed my head hard earlier due to the brew, but I am digressing slightly, so I'll continue. I didn't want to bowl over all geezer and rude, not rude like good, but just rude like uncouth. You girls think you can just flirt and it comes to you. Well, let me tell you, see, yes, you are really rude. And rude as in good, I knew this as you stood and queued, but I just did not want to give the satisfaction to you.
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know it?
And just as you started to make your big advance, with the milkshake and that little donut in hand, I was like, nah, I can't even know you look grand. But you look sharp there, smiling hard, suggesting and gleaming away with your hearty looking tan. But I admit the next bit was spanners my plan. You walked towards my path, but you just brushed right past and into the arms of that fucking white shirted man.
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know it?
What do I give a fuck? I got a girlfriend anyway.
Whoa,
we're
we've all had a drink,
drunk,
mate.
We've had a few, fair play. I got this Stella I bombed from that last cafe. This night's not even begun. Yes, oh yay. I did fancy you a bit though, yeah, I must say. I would rather I hadn't mugged myself on display. But this is just another case of female stopping play in an otherwise total result of a holiday.
I'm not trying to pull you, even though I would like to. I think you are really fit. You're fit, but my gosh, don't you know it?
You're fit, but you know it.
But you know it. You're fit, but you know it. I think I'm going to fall over. I think I'm going to fall over. Fucking hell.